Yeah, thank you, everyone. We're so excited to be here. I'm co-executive director of the Farmers Land Trust, and also on this call is Ian McSweeney, the other co-executive director of the Farmers Land Trust. And we're really excited to just be here to help answer questions if they come up, but to listen to our great, knowledgeable, experienced, and brilliant and amazing co-presenters, Annie Warmke, Moni Cook-Haught, and Sarah Ricks. So without further ado,
Hey, I know that slide. So I'm Annie Warmke, and that is my 45-year partner in crime and life and adventures, and we're a great team. Anyway, and this is us in front of one of the additions that we added to the Earthship. Anyway, so when I was younger and Jay wanted to get married, I said, "Oh, I can't do it because I'm really bad at it. I tried this, it doesn't work." And he said, "If you'll marry me, it'll work." And I guess he was right. And he said, because I was marrying him, it was going to work. So that is the beginning of the adventure where I felt I had this sense for the first time in my life that I had the freedom to live a dream that I had, and that was to eventually end up on land where I could be a farmer again. I had been a farmer as a young woman, and I was a battered woman, and I had to leave my farm. And I actually left 22 times before I was able to hide. So my career was one of organizing women, rural women who needed shelter, who needed a place to go to, organizing volunteers, and um, and really just saying, "I'm going to take on the world." And often I didn't know what I was doing, but I had a dream. And my dream eventually was to be standing right there next to someone who could be my partner, who would believe in me, who wouldn't hold me back, but instead push me forward, as he did many times and still does. Um, and so I've been walking to Blue Rock Station all of my life, even as a kid, climbing trees and getting punished for being a girl climbing a tree. Um, I I've always loved trees, and I just always wanted to be there. So in 1993, when our granddaughter was going to be born, I said, "This is the moment. When I get to be a certain age, we got to buy the land. We got to get things going because I'll be too old or too crippled or too stupid or whatever to be able to carry out all the things that I wanted to do." And so Jay was like, "Whatever, you know, if you like it, I'll love it," which was insulting, but I put up with it when he said that. And so what ended up happening was when our granddaughter was born in 1993, she was born in Muskingum County, which is the county seat is Zanesville, Ohio. And we were Southerners at that point, and we lived outside of Tampa, Florida, and we both had big careers and did some amazing work. But what ended up happening was we became the parents when our granddaughter was born, like right away. And so we hadn't seen that coming. It was a quite an experience and quite a fine line to walk, um, trying to figure out how our daughter could be a mother and how we could be the grandparents instead of the parents. But we were also joyful to have a baby. And we would wake up at night to feed her and say, "We have a baby. How did we get the baby?" It was just so incredible. And he was the best dad and still is the best dad ever. It was such a joy to have that person be this partner that would, take care of babies and actually find excuses to hold her and massage her back. And, it was just a joy to watch. Anyway, so we bought the land the week she was born, and it was vacant land. It had a little bit of pasture, but it had 34 acres of woodlands. And I have to tell you that I felt like I had won the lottery. I had land. And my grandma always said, if you have land, you have everything. But you are only the steward. You have to take care of it. And my grandma and grandpa were Appalachians. And so I have a long heritage of indigenous blood and amazing people. Anyway, so we bought the land. And then I said to Jay, we have to do something that will make a difference for other people, not just us. it would be a sin to have two homes. It felt like really, really humbling to think about it. Like, oh my God, we can't have two homes. We have to share. And we spent our whole married life with somebody living with us, whether it was a woman who was escaping or we had several male friends who were abused that lived with us eventually. Anyway, somebody always living with us. And so I said to Jay, people are going to do whatever, but they could come. Anyway, when our granddaughter was 6 months old, she was laying on my belly and she was sound asleep. And I heard on a community radio station in Tampa, WMNF radio, Michael Reynolds, the architect, talk about building houses out of clean trash. And I looked at my granddaughter and I said, you and mama are going to do that. And that became the process of um, trying to figure out what to do and how to do it. I'd never built anything in my life except took two sheets that my grandma gave me and put them over the swing set so I could build someplace to be away from everybody where they couldn't see me. Um, so then it just became an issue of what to do. And so I said to Jay, we're going to plant some fruit trees because we can get a tax deduction. And he said, wow, okay, I like that. I want a tax deduction. And we were doing very well financially and in every way. And so I started planting fruit trees. And then they just died. So I said to my uncle, who had a lot of incredible trees on his land, all kinds of trees, I said, what am I going to do? And he just laughed and he goes, stop trying to bury it. And so all of the trees were eventually planted in tires. And we suddenly had trees. We had willow trees and we had cherry trees and we had peach trees um and it was really great. Anyway, so then I decided I'm going to build this house out of trash. And um I came to Ohio in the summer with a baby at the beginning on my back and then a toddler. And I was also running a women's fund that I had started and which an offspring of that is Women's Peace Power Foundation, which is involved in this project now as well. Anyway, so to sort of make the longer story short, what happened was I decided I really didn't want to go back to the South. I was ready to be the farmer. I was ready to be here in Ohio, where I was born and proud of Ohio and be an Ohioan. And of course, Jay was having none of that. But I was trying to figure out how do I convince him? How do I make it his idea, which I learned from goat herding. And what ended up happening was I thought I'll have an open house. I'm doing all these weird things with tires and cans and bottles and everything. And people are talking about it. I mean, people would show up, they want to look at, the wall and things like that. So the newspaper came and did an article, and it was on the front page of the paper on a Friday. And on Saturday, 450 people showed up. And I said, oh my God, I'm on to something. And Jay showed up. He'd been in Brazil. He's still in his suit. He's like, what are all these cars doing here? And they were all parked down the road and the other fields and everything. And that was when I knew what I was going to do. So that was a long time ago. But in the meantime, we started to create something. And we called it Blue Rock Station because we'd spent a lot of time in New Zealand and we thought we might live there. And Catlin loved every farm. They called them stations. And she would just say, oh, how great it was. And so she said we should call it Blue Rock Station because the Blue Rock region is where they got slate and things like that. So that's pretty much the story of how it all began. But it's all rooted in the idea that having land is pretty much everything. We can go to the next slide.
Hi, I'm Mona, and boy, is that a goofy picture of me. Um, it was about a high of 5 degrees that day. That's me at the grocery store, all excited, because there to the left of me are my herbal tea blends on sale for the first time at the grocery store. How I got involved with this, though, is I was living in a city and I knew something was missing, but I didn't know what it was. And I was just online searching for things, and I didn't even really know what I was searching for. And Annie's Blue Rock Station Earthship popped up, and I saw that they had tours once a month. And I got all excited, and I was telling my husband, there's this Earthship, and it's the first one built east of the Mississippi, and we have to go see it. And he was like, why do we have to go see it? And I was like, I don't know, but we've got to go see it. Um, and so we went for the tour, and within 10 minutes of being on the property, something special happened with me. And I'm going to get all teary-eyed and probably cry. Yeah, I am going to cry. Um, I knew right away that it was a very special place. Annie had created something very special. And so I came up with every excuse I possibly could to go back. I did another tour. I took my daughter for a tour because she didn't go when we went the first time. My husband and I went for cheese making class. We went for all kinds of classes. We went and worked on one of the walls. We worked on a tire foundation. We did all kinds of projects. Um, and eventually my daughter even became a summer intern. So when the time came when it was time for Annie and Jay to transition to their next phase of their life and to leave Blue Rock Station, I knew that I wanted to be a part of that transition because I wanted to help protect Blue Rock Station and what it was and help steward it to the next step. And that's why I became involved.
Hi, everybody. Happy Earth Day. I'm in Happy Earth Day from inside the Earth ship. Um, so I'm Sarah Ricks. I'm the next land steward of Blue Rock Station. Um, so a little about me. I'm a mother and I'm an artist and I'm an educator. Protecting and nurturing, caring for people and the planet has always been like one of my top priorities in life. Um, so I work as an organizer and fundraiser for Ohio Citizen Action. We're a grassroots organization here in Ohio. They kind of mobilize people to take action on things like environmental protection and public health, renewable energy, government and corporate accountability, and like voting rights is a new one we work on, and just other social justice issues. I'm also the board president of Sycamore Learning Cooperative. We are a homeschool learning co-op. My kids are homeschooled. So this co-op, we do 2 weekly parent-led classes for homeschooled children and events and weekly nature hikes, a drop-off program for drop-off and homeschool enrichment program, which I teach art for 2 kids 7 and up. I have a husband named Jason, who I also call Jay. And every time I hear Annie talk about Jay, I was like, it's so funny. She has her Jay, I have my Jay. Because it is very much the same thing. He is my partner in every way, and he's my biggest supporter. And I am never scared to like do anything because I know that he's always going to have my back. And I know that Annie, when she watched when we first came out to Blue Rock Station, she watched us and I think that's one of the reasons why she picked us was because she liked how we worked together. She liked how he supported me. We also have 2 children. They are 13 and 15. Corbin, he loves animals and also like computer science and technology. And he was studying photovoltaics. He just got his photovoltaic installer 1 certification through solar PV training, which is Annie's husband Jay's program. And he went and spent the night over at Warmke Farms with Annie and Jay, and he did the 2 day like on hands-on training, and went and took his test the next day, and he passed. So yay! And Cora, she is just turned 13. Oh, and she's in the picture there. I'm not even looking at the picture. She's in the picture there. That's Corbin and Cora. Cora is a very talented visual artist and a baker. She is actually working with Annie to illustrate a children's book that they're writing together about Norman, the livestock guardian dog of Blue Rock Station, in honor of his memory. My kids are both very hardworking and empathetic, and I know that it's not that I can even guess. I know for a fact because Annie told me that they're a big reason why she picked us to take Blue Rock Station on. And I think, and that's it, I guess. Slide.
So this is so great seeing the pictures. I am often, I was able to articulate my grief in having to leave, but to really put it into words that I just get homesick. Um, anyway, this is a picture of different things that I done as the farmer at Blue Rock Station, and these amazing young people on the mule are all Oberlin students from Northern Ohio, and they were in fact just here. Two of them that are in that picture were just here this weekend with other students, and came to work and do all kinds of things, and they didn't want to go home. So I felt like, oh, it's old home week, just not at Blue Rock Station. So it's lovely. Anyway, my vision has always been rooted in that I am merely one cog in the wheel. And so I need to do my job in terms of being a steward of the land and the insects and the critters and the people and myself. And then I need to step out of the way so everything can do its job with me. And that's how I've raised livestock and how I've treated plants, and certainly my precious dog there. So my vision, though, was always that it would involve tribes of people and that everything would be open and honest and transparent in terms of relationships and the work that we would do. And so we had over time about 115 interns from all over the world who have lived with us and worked on projects. And that has been probably my biggest vision and most helpful vision, because some of those interns began to want to come back. So we created a couple of opportunities. They can come anytime they want and they can stay. And sometimes when something's wrong, they will, or life is just too much and they come. But we have 2 events a year, goat stock in the summer, and this was all something that they wanted to do. And so we have music, and it's really a reunion. We have games and prizes and tie-dye and all kinds of fun things. And then we also have a party right before Christmas with Yule. So we get to see them going into the new year, which is really so wonderful. And I'm always happy to see them. And then I'm often happy when they go home, because there's always a lot of them at one time. It's rare to have one at a time. It's like a woman who has a lot of children, and you think, oh, I have alone time with my youngest. Oh, this is great. So, but my vision then sort of over time evolved from this sort of internship and them coming back periodically to how could I engage them more completely in a way that would benefit the future of the farm as I aged. So right before COVID, I formed a farm advisory board. They like that. They call themselves BAB. And we had meetings, and it was in one of those meetings that I had asked Ian McSweeney, who at the time was working at a different farmland trust, to be on Zoom with us and talk about what he was doing, because I had heard him speak at the Farm Animal Concern Trust one time, and I was instantly loving him. He just has this great voice and this great way of explaining things, and he was saying something profound to me, and that was I didn't have to sell my farm. I could take my farm and I could find another farmer and they could come and live there and earn a living and make money, and they could have the ability to pass that lease on to their children, and but they could never sell the land. It was worthless. I loved saying it. It's worthless. You know, you can't do anything with it because it's worthless. It has no money value. And so I really believed that. And so when we had the meeting, the people by now, the interns, the former interns, they were in their late 20s, early 30s, and they just thought it, first of all, they cried because they thought Annie's going to die. And I was like, well, not today. I'm planning, I'm planning what will happen to this important thing, the most important thing in my life in terms of my work and my spiritual practice. I need to know it's safe, just like I need to know my bank account is safe if I'm going to die. So anyway, then what evolved from that was really this powerful group, and it was mostly women who were advising me and telling me, we met twice a year, and they would say, oh, Annie, you work too much, or stop lifting. You need to get an employee. Stop trying to clean the house. You hate to. Why don't you get somebody to clean the house? And it was very inspiring. I left those meetings inspired. And so my vision really from the beginning I see now was one of how do I take these tools that I have in terms of my own personality and my own vision and my own will, which is very strong, and how do I make that into something that evolves into a rich tool for many, many people. And so that has been the vision, and that is the work that I've done. And then when I had a very serious accident, and I had to learn to walk again, there were two things that happened that helped me a lot. One is that Mona came to see me, and I realized she could be helpful, really helpful as an attorney. She's not always taken her being an attorney that seriously, but I have. And I'm like, I need you. I must have said that 20 times that day when everybody was eating chocolate cake. Is like, Mona, I need you. I'm feeling better. And then the other thing that happened was that Ian sort of crossed my periphery, and I was like, no, we're going to do this. We're going to move this farm. I have to stop doing what I'm doing in the way I'm doing it. And we're going to move this farm into a more sacred place, I thought. And that's when Christina came along, and she's the delight of life. And I trust both of them implicitly. I've been involved in every decision. I've been listened to, which is unique as a woman in agriculture. And then the great thing is that Christina and Ian are so supportive of this vision that I have had and that other people have. So when these young people are there, having been the farm board, now they have opportunity to continue to be involved, not just in what happens at the farm, but also in supporting Sarah and Jason and the kids in what they are going to do. And that means a lot to me, because I feel like the most important thing we did was find a family that had children. And not that I don't have, I love Sarah and Jason, and we meet every other week, and we've worked on a lot of things, but the kids they are really the hope that we all have and who we should be working for, not just those children, but all children. So that's the farm vision, my sermon for the day, maybe.
All right. Well, you've heard what Annie's vision is. So the purpose behind the Farmland Commons is to create a legal structure to keep that vision going. So that's why we're here. So the Farmlands Commons is a way of legally moving farmland into community ownership. And we do that by creating a local land holding nonprofit corporation. And that entity then does a 99-year lease with the farmer. And that 99-year lease gives the farmer security because they have a 99-year lease. But more importantly, it decommodifies the land because it's taking it out of the normal um, sale process of, selling it to the highest bidder. So that is the whole reason behind the Farmlands Common is being able to support a vision like Annie's. So the first step in creating this farmland commons is you have to decide on what structure you're going to use. And there's two that we can use. The first option is to use a 501c25, and the second is to use a 501c2. Both of these forms are strictly limited to holding real property and are limited to incidental personal property connected to the lease. The primary difference between the two is that a 501c2 can only have one parent organization, but a 501c25 can have up to 35. And those 35 can be unrelated tax exempt entities, and those can include things like pension plans, government entities like cities, or 501c3 nonprofit corporations. Next slide. We chose to do 501c25 for our structure framework. And to start us off, we have 3 founding 501c3 organizations, the Farmers Land Trust, the Women Food and Agricultural Network, and the Women Peace Power Foundation. Next slide. So the process, just like it takes time to build soil, it takes time to create a Farmers Land Commons. This is a collaborative process. This was something very different for me with an attorney background. Usually as an attorney, someone comes to you with a problem. They give you their facts, and then you go away on your own and you work on it. And when you have it all put together, you meet back with the client and you give them your results. This process is not like that at all. With this process, all the different stakeholders work together every step of the way. So in this case, all 3 of the nonprofits had their representatives involved. Annie, as the landowner, was involved. Sarah and her husband, as the farmers, were involved. And then I was involved as the attorney. In the steps, starting with shared values, and this is important to be the first step for a number of reasons. First of all, if the people working on the documents don't share the same values, there's going to be a lot of strife. This is especially for Annie, this was a very emotional process. This involves a lot of letting go for her. And in order for this process to take place, the values really had to be agreed upon. And this was done through a shared agreements for governance and equity. And this is where all the parties work together to find common ground. We did not always agree, and we had different views as to how some of those values might be best implemented. But through the process, we were able to come up with an agreement that we all felt comfortable with and were willing to go forward with. Another agreement that was required was a memorandum of understanding. And this was an agreement that had to be adopted between the 3 nonprofits, where they could work to formalize their understandings and expectations of what their roles and requirements were going to be with this new legal relationship that they were going to have going forward. The next step was defining the organization's purpose through the bylaws. We had to set rules for rules for daily operations, from everything like meeting dates to voting procedures to how members were going to be notified, to how board members were going to be selected. And it also had to contain the proper procedures and information to make sure we stayed compliant with the Internal Revenue Code to keep our nonprofit status. Once the bylaws are completed, then you can move on to filing your articles of incorporation. It's the articles of incorporation that actually legally create the entity. It's not the bylaws. So until you file your articles of incorporation, the entity does not legally exist. This is a public document that's filed with the state, and you file it with whatever state that your land exists in. So our land is in Ohio, so our articles of incorporation were filed in Ohio. It does not require much information. Articles of incorporation just require some basic facts. The name of the corporation, the location of the principal office, which is going to be where the land's located, the purpose for which the corporation is being formed. So in our case, it's a land holding corporation, and the appointment of a statutory agent. In Ohio and most states, you cannot file articles of incorporation unless you file a statutory agent at the same time. In Ohio, the filing fee is $99, which I think is pretty reasonable actually, but that amount will differ based on what state that you're filing in. The main difference between bylaws and articles of incorporation is bylaws are private and articles of incorporation are public. And bylaws kind of serve as a rule book for the individuals that are doing the daily business of the corporation, where the articles of incorporation are merely to create the legal entity of the corporation. After the articles and the bylaws are completed, then you can move on to the lease agreement. The lease agreement is between the commons and the farmer, and the lease agreement can vary greatly from commons to commons, and they can be as specific as each wants to make it. It frames the expectations, the agreements, the rights and responsibilities between the farmer and the commons board. It can restrict things such as what can be brought onto the property, what kind of things can be grown on the property. It can prohibit things that can be done on the property. It really depends on the parties that are involved. The farm management plan is a document that I consider a living document. And by that, I mean, of all of the documents that you're going to create, this is the document that's probably going to be reviewed and updated the most. And the reason why is that this is really a practical document. The farm management plan is going to need to respond to the farmers and what they need and how the farmers are using the land. And it's going to need to be reviewed probably annually. And it's going to cover things like stewardship management practices, infrastructure needs and improvements, and any equity considerations that need to be considered. For example, if the farmers make investments of their own money into new structures or things like that. So that's why I consider that kind of a living document. Next slide. So one of the great things about the Farmers Land Trust is that they have some wonderful free templates available online. And they have them for all the documents I've been talking about, the Memorandum of Understanding, the shared agreements, the bylaws, the lease, the farm management plan. And for Blue Rock Commons, we used all of the templates as a starting point. And in addition to those templates, on the Farmers Land Trust website, there's tons of useful information about the entire process. So if you have any interest in this at all, I strongly urge you to visit their website first. Next slide. So the board of directors, Blue Rock Farmland Commons chose to do what's called a tripartite governance model. And what that does is it prevents any single interest group from dominating decisions about the land. The board is split into 3 equal parts. The first part being the leaseholder representative. So that would be the farmer, typically. It's the people that live on or farm the trust land. And this ensures that the needs of those directly using the resource are met. The second group is the community stakeholders. In our case, it's members of the 501c3 organizations. And these are people that represent a broader local interest and ensures that the commons remain a community interest, or a community asset, I should say. And then the third group is what are considered experts. And these can be national experts, such as Christina from the Farmers Land Trust. And it can also be things like an attorney to help with legal issues. Next slide. On this slide are 2 resources that are free online. Now, while they are specific for Ohio, they both have a lot of good information that would be good for any state, not just Ohio. Especially the Charitable University one. It's designed to help board members understand their legal obligations and learn the best practices for running nonprofits. And they have short webinars that cover 4 main topics: board governance, financial operations and internal controls, filings and record keeping, and fundraising. And those 4 topics would be good for a nonprofit in any state. So it wouldn't matter if you were not in Ohio. The Start a Nonprofit Organization in Ohio, it does have some specific references to Ohio statutes, but the general information in the PDF would cover a nonprofit organization in any state. So I would recommend those free resources as well. Thank you.
Oh, okay. I don't think this is how I wanted the slides to go. But oh no, it is right. Never mind. I have my notes wrong. Ignore me. Yeah, so I always dreamed of having land so that I could live in a way that, actually helped the planet versus taking away from it. And in 2015, we were actually living in Michigan, and we started looking for land in Michigan. And it just was not going to happen. We were living in Petoskey, Michigan. It was a tourist area. My husband is a professional brewer, and he was assistant head brewer at Petoskey Brewing Company. And very touristy town. Like, rent was ridiculous. Finding property there was going to be, it just was like nothing quite fit, or we were just constantly getting outbid, or it was just way beyond our comfort level taking on that amount of debt. So we decided, well, why don't we move back to Ohio? Let's see if maybe it'll be better there. And it really wasn't. I mean, the prices were lower, but not much. I mean, if you wanted anything other than like an acre of land, it just once again, and nothing ever really felt right. We would look at all kinds of properties, and I never like stepped on a property and was like, yes, this is it. I will do anything to get this land, type thing. And so for like 10 years, we just continued to rent and watch, and hope that, we found something. But we didn't want to like give up on like growing. So in that time, like we just started in our townhouse, our tiny townhouse, we started growing anything we could. We filled my office with these metal racks and grow lights, and we're growing stuff indoors. And we made these hydroponic towers so that we could grow stuff like vertically. We, just microgreens was another thing because you can grow a lot of that in a teeny tiny, like ungodly amounts of microgreens in a tiny place all over your kitchen counters and everywhere. And we started studying like regenerative agriculture and permaculture, and we were just growing as much as we could in the tiny space we had and trying to focus on the things that we could actually do in the space we had and with what we had. We started looking at buying land again, and then we started also thinking about like eco-friendly and environmental buildings. And in that time period, I don't think earthships ever came up, but but we were thinking about that too, because we were also looking at just like the energy efficiency. I mean, in the field I work in, and we do a lot with renewable energy and things like that. And you're thinking about climate change, you're thinking about the environment. And then one time in our townhouse, I will say this, now that we lived in the earthship and we went through this whole winter with negative temperatures in the earth outside. So in our townhouse, we lost power, and it was in the middle of winter. And it was within like maybe 20 minutes, the house was just as cold inside as it was outside. And it was almost to the point where we didn't really have any, at the time, we had just moved back and we were far enough away from our family that's like, what are we supposed to do? Like, if it gets so cold, like, is it safe to stay here? What do we do? And so you start to think about like, that just doesn't seem like a very smart way to be living if your power is out and you're going to end up freezing to death because of that. Even with no external heat going on in the earthship in the winter, it still never got to where you were anywhere near a danger zone of being freezing to death, even without running heat. So yeah, just smarter ways to build things as well. And that just forward thinking of we were trying to look into that as well before we even found out that Blue Rock Station existed, even though we were only an hour away from here. Oh, slide. So learning about Blue Rock Station, like I said, even though we lived only an hour away from here, and I was born and raised in Ohio, I didn't know Blue Rock Station existed. And when I found out, I was like, that's so weird. It seems like something that I would know about. So my friend who is pictured right here, Molly Loans, she runs Novel Tree Farm in Thornville. So she's also the executive director of Sycamore Learning Cooperative, which is the homeschool co-op that I'm the board president of. She is the one who told me about Blue Rock Station. She knew, she had known me for a number of years. She knew that I was interested in environmental advocacy. She knew that I was interested in making things out of trash, which I like to make jewelry out of trash. So it's kind of funny. I like to make things out of trash. Now I live in a trash house. And she knew that we were really interested in buying land and starting to farm and, and trying to live regeneratively. And so she came to me and she was like, hey, have you heard of Blue Rock Station? And she found out about Blue Rock Station because she was buying Annie's beekeeping equipment. And she's like, this seems like something that would be perfect for you. And she was like telling me about the Farmers Land Trust and how if she could go back in time and redo how she bought her tree farm, that she would love to do it in that kind of way versus the conventional way. And so she was like, she's like, you would be a perfect fit for Blue Rock Station. And she said, you would love Annie too. And I was like, okay. And, she was right. So good job, Molly. Next slide. So the application process, we actually originally, when Molly told me to apply for the Blue Rock station and like send in my application. I originally didn't do it because I was kind of like, what is this? Like, is this some kind of, I don't know, like this doesn't make sense. People don't do things like this, that's not reality, I guess. And we also, I was like, and we don't have like this, like, do we even have the skill set to do something like this? Um, and then after another push from Molly, we did put in our application. Jason and I kind of sat down and made like a list of like, what do we have to offer? What are our skills? What do we know? Like, and when we started making that list, we started being like, oh, I mean, yeah, we could do this. Like, why couldn't we? Um, I think that we're just like, we have skills, we can do this. So we submitted our application, and then I actually listened to multiple podcast interviews that Christina and Ian had done, so that I could learn more about the Farmers Land Trust and what it was about. And that was really like exciting and really inspiring as well. And I sent Annie an email, and then she called me back, and we had our first conversation on the phone. And she invited, and then shortly after that, we came out to Blue Rock Station for the first time and met Annie in person. And yeah, the work days. Now I'm distracted because the slide changed. We met Annie in person, and we also had a bunch of different like interviews with the Blue Rock Station vetting committee and things like that. But we started coming out to Blue Rock Station and helping Annie wherever she needed. And we met some of the interns, which were great. And I worked in the high tunnel, and Jason worked on 15th, the roof of the llama lounge, and we helped repair the elephant foot to the earthship, patched the wall to the outhouse, and Cora made signs and decorations for goat stock, which Annie already mentioned. Goat stock, it doubled last year as kind of the day of selecting the next land steward of Blue Rock Station as well. Slide. I wasn't sure, Annie, do you want to talk about the selection
Could I
process?
say something too?
Yeah.
I want to point out when you said, that at first you said, I don't have the job skills, that we did create Sam Tenenbaum, who's with Women Food and Agriculture Board. She put together a Rubik's that we started to use. And then the second time we did interviews, Eduardo, who's one of our former interns, and I decided that we needed to look at this differently, and it really helped a lot. So we made this vetting form that looked at what employers would look at for an employee. We looked at work ethic. We looked at do you show up on time? What's your relationship with the other people in your life, which was a big deal to me coming out of the battered women's movement and my own life, and also the kids. And so we had about 8 or 9 things, and we ranked those. And what happened when we laid that down on the 14 or so people who had applied, it just erased almost everybody but the Ricks and one other couple, because they fit all of this. I also wanted to erase the emotion, which I had plenty of, for everybody, because honestly, it was really hard on a lot of the former interns. They were excited that we were going to do this because it's so revolutionary. And so, as they would say, Annie. But I wanted to know that we were going to move forward, and it wasn't about me. It really could never be about me, which is why I'm not on the board, which is why I, do what I can to help raise money and everything, but I'm not making decisions on how things work. And I think that was a really smart thing that I did, because it was so beautiful. On this day where it says the selection, I think there was like 26 or 27 people who came that day. And they were there early before goat stock actually began. And we started to talk. And I won't go into that if Sarah wants to say something about that. But it was very emotional, and it was very powerful. And And it really came down to this whole thing of vetting who works the hardest, who has the most potential. Not that you know things. I was 52 when I actually started living there. And most of the things that I know today, I learned after that in terms of my work as a farmer and also, just coming into the right timing. Um, the work of permaculture or regenerative agriculture is really still very new. So I feel like Ricks are on the cusp of doing something really great with it. Thanks, Sarah.
Um, like I guess my the selection process, like coming in that day, we still didn't know, like, we didn't know like if it was going to be us or not at the time. And I had almost come to like, it's okay, because the whole experience up to that point had been worth it. And I say that, I think I said this in the last webinar participant, and if you have the chance to do something like this, even it doesn't, just do it. Whether you get it or not, it's still worth it, because the people we met and the connections we made, the friends I think that we made along the way as well, and the things we learned. Like we learned so much just from that, just this whole process was worth it in the end. Because I was like, well, we'll just take this knowledge and move on to the next one. Or maybe the Farmers Land Trust will have something else for us like down the line. But it was, but we were the ones that were picked. And I do think my husband says over and over, and he's like, I think that a lot of it's like serendipitous, that it seems like things just kept falling in place. Like, and everything felt right. And it still feels right. So that's good. So we have been out at Blue Rock Station full time since August. Moving in, cleaning, organizing, getting settled in. Preparing for winter and now preparing for summer. Talking to other farmers that we've been put in contact with, either through like by Annie or Christina, or other Blue Rock Common boards members that share kind of similar farming practices as we do. We've been working with Field Speak, which is the Savory Institute. It's like a hub of the Savory Institute in Kentucky. They're helping us come up with a grazing plan for sheep. And we also want to manage our pastures and build our soil and increase land function and make rainfall effective, and bringing in small ruminants is a great way to do that. We want to also do some pasture raised broilers and perennial crops. And just a lot of it is very much hands-on learning out here at Blue Rock Station. And we've gained like so much in such a short period of time. Our agricultural literacy has like just exploded out here, and the connections we've made and the friends we've made. The Farmers Land Trust kind of gives us like doing this way, the way we're doing this versus going like conventional and just purchasing land. You get so much more out of it. I mean, I've never went the other way, but it's like we have a community that we're kind of that's already here for us. We have people who actually care about the land that we're taking over, that I know that I could reach out to anyone who's on any of the ex-interns or any of the Blue Rock Commons or any of the people from the Farmers Land Trust, and definitely Annie at any time. If we need anything, or if I have a question, or I don't know something, or I need help. I know Jason was texting Annie about a bush hog the other day. And we also, with the Farmers Land Trust, we don't have that burden of debt hanging around our necks. We can move slowly with the things we're doing. We can be, organized and mindful and and not oppose like our will on the land here so that we can get as much profit as quickly as possible so that we can pay off this huge debt that we have. It's just crushing us, which I think does seem to be what happens a lot of times and when you're working in agriculture. And also there's so much stress. And I feel like a lot of times you probably feel isolated, and we don't feel that because we have this community and that's here to help. There are people here to help us that actually care, not just about us, but about the land that we are taking care of. Um, and so we can do things and avoid like unintended consequences that would be detrimental to the land that we're trying to take care of. Yeah, I think that's good. And now my impassioned speech is over.
Well, I mean, this just is the same picture that we really looked at before, and that how it all works. So I think it explains everything. Can we see the next slide? And we also talked about that. But Christina, would you like to say something about this slide since you're our fearless leader here?
Yeah, sure. So we as the Farmers Land Trust are in collaboration with Annie and her husband Jay Warmke and the Blue Rock Station community to raise the money needed to acquire Blue Rock Station and move it into this structure that you've just heard about, that we've all been working very diligently to create. And so Annie and Jay are doing something unheard of, and they are donating a very generous amount of their land value to the Blue Rock Farmland Commons. And then it's up to a community to meet them there and to meet their generosity and to donate to support this land acquisition fundraiser so that Sarah and Jason can sign their 99-year lease. And so this Blue Rock Farmland Commons entity that have been created can then take in that land. And we would be so grateful for your support.
Thank you.
I dropped the link in the chat if this is something you would like to donate towards.
Thank you, Jennifer. And we have so many ways to contribute to this. So, donating through card payment in the link that Jennifer just added. You can also mail a check. You can also donate stocks. We've had 2 different people donate vehicles now, which is really exciting. And it's quick and easy and free to do, and just have a quick tow of your vehicle that then goes toward this. So there are many ways to be involved. We have several businesses, including Appalachian Herb Company that has sponsored this fundraiser. And we'd love to talk about how we can partner with you if you're interested in being part of this too.
Oh, Sarah, how about if you talk about this? I just want to say,
I was actually going to ask if you wanted to talk about like how you've already kind of mentioned, I guess, how like Goat Stock got started.
Okay. I'm happy to talk about it. So this is going to be our new approach to goat stock, in that we're going to have a fundraising dinner the night before on the 10th. We did that last year. That's when Sarah and Jason and their children came, and there's an adorable picture of everybody from last year at Goat Stock, and some decorations and stuff. And so we hope, if you're going to be in Ohio, or you might like to be in Ohio, it's a beautiful place to visit in the summer. We hope you'll join us. There'll be information on social media in terms of what we're going to do, and everybody's invited.
There will also be information in our newsletter, so make sure you sign up at thefarmerslandtrust.org for the newsletter too.
Yeah. So I just want to say thank you to Women's Food and Agriculture Network, because I feel like it's not just, for me, it's a win-win thing, because WFAN has been really important to me over the years and has encouraged me as a woman, as somebody who cares about non-binary and where we stand with everybody. And I hope that there'll be more opportunities for you to take the lead, because I think this is the future, but it's happening now. And it's a great way to get some real recognition for the important work that WFAN does. So thank you so much, Jennifer.
Thank you so much, Annie, for inviting us to be a part of this. I am really proud to be a part of something that I see as so innovative right
Thank
now,
you.
especially meeting, current needs.
Thank you. It's kind of like when you say this concludes our service.
Yeah, so we are at time. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. But if our speakers want to hang on, if you have time for like another moment, if people have questions, they can ask.
I have a comment. I've